So my name is Leanne Hughes. I am Cannes dedicated resource in Scotland. If you don't know who we are in Cannes, we are a digital agency. We work mainly in paid media solutions. I'm the actual dedicated resource in Scotland, so I'm based in Edinburgh, worked in public sector for over 20 years, previously to working in Cannes, mainly in NHS. I'm CIPR chartered practitioner, so I have a chartership in communications and PR. Very sort of interested in helping folk report on real outcomes and impact from campaigns and paid media, and helping people actually, I suppose, understand what they're doing with their paid media, what they're doing with their campaigns. And obviously this is about adult social care recruitment. So I suppose effectively using paid media for the most bang for your buck, I suppose is the easiest way to say it. We work with My Job Scotland, COSLA and Douglas, who's on the call. We work with him as his media agency, which is why we're here to help Douglas with his offer today. And we just feel really, and I feel, having been around public sector for a long time, couple of decades, that in Scotland, the use of digital media for recruitment, can be improved, and there's absolutely tons of opportunity, I think, in terms of what's available there. So a very quick session overview. Everybody on this call who is Scottish based will be aware that the Scottish Government's Health and Social Care Service Renewal Framework, which I'm glad I've written down there because it's not easy to roll off the tongue, that was published in June. And we've seen from that a continued focus on adult social care recruitment as a priority policy area for all the reasons that we will know and understand. On looking at that, it was good to see mentions of designing and testing and a candidate-centred approach, pastoral, the induction, the best practice and the professional support to recruits, and sort of having a look at the more of a holistic process, I suppose. We can only hope that the support is there to sort of provide that and back up the words in the framework. And then just a wee note, an admin note really, that absolutely everybody's welcome if you're here from south of the border. CAN works across all of the UK. As I've said before, I'm the Scottish lead, so I'm here as a conduit in Scotland, but everyone's welcome. But some of the offers, especially what Douglas is going to speak about today, is only for Scottish audience, because that's, the nature of the offer is for Scottish folk only, or people working in Scotland. And just a note from me that My Job Scotland, sorry about the capital M there, Douglas, the autocorrect just insists doing that, even though I changed it. My Job Scotland always under small letters there. It's an excellent Scottish resource, and one point of this webinar really today is to encourage folk to use Scottish resources, and when we are talking about Scottish recruitment, so we'll have a few ideas about how to use that as a resource, and maybe think about remarketing, retargeting and the other opportunities that working with My Job Scotland can present. So what we will cover how to register on the My Job Scotland free online listings for adult social care and personal assistant vacancies. So Douglas is going to cover that off shortly. How to use digital advertising to get the best and the most cost-effective recruitment outcomes for adult care settings. Delivering the ads to people where they actually are online, rather than trying to find them to come to you. John Paul Danon is actually covering that today. Mark was advertised on the schedule, but John Paul is covering that bit of the schedule today. And then Tony and I are going to have a bit of a chat. So that's Tony, who works across Scotland for recruitment MOTs, and I'll introduce him properly in a sec. Just going to have a chat about the current context in Scotland, in particular looking at adult social care recruitment, and a bit more of a what are the opportunities, and a bit of a look back in terms of the things that Tony has found over the years that he's been doing this work, about what we know what works and what doesn't work, what are the frustrations, and a bit of a conversation about that. So that's what we'll have a look at. So I'd like to introduce Douglas. He's the Chief Digital Officer at COSLA. We've been working with Douglas at Cannes for quite a few years now, probably about 6 or 7 years. Douglas has a vast experience in public sector recruitment field and working with Scottish Government on related digital solutions. And he is responsible for My Job Scotland website, the user experience and the growth of that. And as I said previously, we at Cannes are partners in sort of helping with that work, which is why we're here supporting Douglas today on this webinar. So I shall come back, and Douglas, if you want to take over.
Yes, thanks, Leanne. Hopefully everyone can see that screen. Nod. Leanne, yeah, good, thanks. Right, yes, so thanks for that introduction, Leanne, and thanks for all coming along to this session today. I thought it was interesting that Can actually suggested this. We should have done this much earlier than we have done, so we've just taken the opportunity at the end of the summer holidays to try and run this short event. So yes, thanks for giving me the opportunity to do this today. We've obviously been running this campaign for a number of years now, so it's, you know, this is really the first opportunity of being able to speak to you all. I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to get Triple SC and Scottish Care and all that to get involved, so we can maybe do more of these as kind of running sessions as to maybe how to get the best out of your pages on the site, and obviously that's why Can are here today as well. So just to kind of give you some background, My Job Scotland is run from the centre at COSLA. We're based in Haymarket. We have 32 councils who are our members. We represent 5 million people. We employ 260,000 people across Scotland. And we're seen as the voice of local government. We generally work with national and UK government to deliver policies and to also provide feedback and information to make sure those policies incorporate everybody's, everybody within our communities. So the reason that we kind of came up with the site was a need to have a recruitment website. About 2006, we found that maybe 4 or 5 councils were using a very early version of what's known as an ATS. An ATS is an applicant tracking system. And we were tasked, or I say we, an organisation who I worked with, were tasked by the Improvement Service, who work closely with COSLA, to come up with a solution that would be a national solution for all local authorities to use and to advertise their jobs. To give you some context, there was about £15 million being spent on recruitment advertising. So to be able to transition to a recruitment website, which would not only become a destination site for people to search for jobs, but also to become this applicant tracking system, which would be a common national system across Scotland, is what we've managed to deliver. And the cost to produce that, it was just a little bit over £1 million, and it costs roughly about £500,000 a year to run. So you can see that quite quickly there's a £14.5 million saving there. So we've had various iterations of the site over the years. We've ultimately ended up with what you see on the screen at the moment, very kind of visual interpretation of, well, I think that's Mull. It's Tobermory. But we regularly change that image. And we've always used imagery to promote the website. I think recruitment is very much a visual and face-to-face thing. So we kind of shied away from the kind of graphic illustrations that we used in the past. So tried to keep it as clean as possible. What we built is essentially a brand, and as Leanne mistakenly capitalized it earlier on, My Job Scotland is all one word, and we used it to use the kind of three kind of main kind of keywords. Job is such a very difficult keyword to buy on Google, so to incorporate it in our name was quite well, looking back on that, it was a good idea. But as you can see from this slide, this is from prior to 2008, so this is back from 2005. So looking at all the traffic that was running across Google, the blue line is jobs in Scotland. The red line is My Job Scotland, so that one word. And then I've also incorporated the three words My Job and Scotland, which is the yellow. So if you look at the red and the yellow there, it's way above the jobs in Scotland, which was the norm prior to 2008. So we've been successful in that sense in terms of trying to capture the job aspect and the region aspect of it. So what I showed you earlier on was the landing page. This is an organization page, so this is specifically for organizations. The page that I'm going to take you into next is for Enable. I think they may be on the call. I'm not sure if they are or not, but what I wanted to do is kind of just take you through how these pages are created, what they look like, and what we can add to it. So you can see straight away from here that when you do a job search, or sorry, an organisation search, that you can see the My Job Scotland logo used in a couple of those now. That's what happens when people don't upload a logo. It just defaults to MGS. So we don't want to see our logo across the page. We'd rather have your own logo because your own logo is there. It's there. People will recognise it, and they will probably recognize the logo quicker than seeing the name of it. So I'm just going to stop sharing this and now share the website. So if we clicked into Enable, you can see immediately you're taken into the jobs page. Now the jobs page consists of all the jobs, essentially a cut down version of the vast number of searches that you would see on the main page. Now, if I click into this youth coordinator one, for example, you'll see how an advert is created. We have the contract type, we've got the position type, we've got the salary, and we've got the more important closing date. And that appears on the summary ad, but also appears on the main advert as well. Now, if you were one of our organizations who used our ATS system, this option here would actually take you directly into the application process. So the application process is where you capture all the candidate details. Now, given that we probably have in excess of 1.5 million candidates on the system, and as I said earlier on, we support 5 million people in Scotland. The rough candidate pool is about half about half of what we actually have on the site at the moment. So people who have accounts on the system can click on the apply button and it'll immediately recognize who they are, and any information they've previously input into the system will be available for them to reuse. So it's not a matter of having to copy and paste stuff in. So obviously this is the advert. However, if I was to go across or even back to the kind of main Enable page, you can see at this we've got the logo at the top, we've got the logo that sits on the side, but this is the home page. So the home page, everyone has a home page once an account has been created, and that home page comes with us with a unique URL, and that URL can be promoted in any of your marketing materials. So the My Job Scotland URL will be at the front, / and I think it might say adult care, but we're trying to get that changed. But then it should just go to the name of your organization. So it's a nice, quick, easy URL that people can remember. And this is the page that they would come to. Now, the problem with this is twofold. Again, the image we've got in the back there, that is a default image. We can upload any image that you want us to. and also we can populate this page here. There's nothing in here at the moment, so if there's anybody on the enable call that wants to get in touch, we can certainly put some blurb in there, and we can put quite a lot in. If I look to the RGU site, so RGU, Robert Gordon's University in Aberdeen, this is their homepage. And as you can see, they've got some text, and then we've got some buttons, and we've got some imagery. And these find out more buttons essentially will take you directly into the pages on their websites. So whilst the link is out, we would retain the candidate within these pages. So it just kind of provides a linkage between the two. Now, as you can see from other ones as well, Cargom have done something similar, but have actually got some copy in here. So no image, but have some copy. So I would urge you all to kind of get in touch with us and make sure that we're incorporating some of your own imagery that you're using across your own websites or even any of your marketing materials, and also have a homepage and have some links in there. The more links that we can get in there, the better it is for you, the better it is for us. People looking for Cargom, for example, in recruitment and jobs, they'll come up quicker in Google searches. And then just kind of finally, just to kind of bring it back to what Leanne was saying earlier on, is that we have got some performance figures that we publish on an annual basis for councils, and we have some newsletters in there as well, so that can all be found in the kind of about us pages. So if I stop sharing and go back into the main thing again, one of the things when you sign up, you can add many people in your organization, give them access to adding jobs. But one of the things that you will have access to is the visibility of all your jobs. Now, what I've done here is I've taken a snapshot of an admin page, and you can see predominantly from these last couple of columns, the number of applications. Now, the number of applications relates to a regular post and a featured post. So where it says 1 out of 0, it means it's not 1 out of 0, it's one regular post application, or if that was another one, that would be a featured. So we can do featured jobs. We haven't really promoted that very often, but if you'd like us to, you can just get in touch with us and ask, and we can feature that for a couple of days as well. So that would show you in your admin section as to how well that is performing. The last column there is the amount of views that your advert has had. Again, based on a regular post and a featured post. So you can see some of these, and I've purposely not included the name of the organization here, but you can see, for example, here that at the bottom, this one here has had 456 views, and essentially 2 views via a featured post. So that's what you get with you sign up. But in terms of, I know most of people will have already signed up anyway, but any adult service care provider, public or private, operate in Scotland and registered with Care and Spectrum is available, is allowed to take care of, is allowed to publish their jobs for free. Now, just to clarify that, what I mean by that, I mean it needs to be a frontline job, so it can't be an office or an admin. Whether it's a cook, that's subject to queries, but that's the kind of general definition that we apply, and we've done it on a couple of occasions with a grant that we've received from the Scottish Government. We did it for the early years to promote the 1100 hours, but also the fact that we've been running this for the last 3 or 4 years, and the fact it keeps on getting renewed is really down to yourselves, and actually yourselves all using the service. I think we've got about 2/3 of all registered organisations on the site, which is pretty good. But we also allow organisations that promote personal assistance jobs to apply for to advertise for free. That's within a separate area, but it just brings together all those kind of jobs together. And really, if you weren't part of this Scottish Government grant, the cost of these jobs could range from roughly 50 to 180 pounds a job. The 50 pound is a discounted batch job, so if you don't fall into the above, you can still publish jobs with us. You can take a package. The package never expires, so you can get your jobs as low as 50 pounds. But if you just want a one-off job, it's 180 pounds. And I think that still represents good value for money, given that the audience that we have is an audience that is not like a general audience, like an Indeed audience or an S1 audience, which is all generalist job boards. And because we are such a specific job board, it means that the clarity and quality of the user is more likely to get you a response. And as I said as well, given that you're only using the front end of the system just to advertise jobs, we can provide you with access to our applicant tracking system. So if you want and you don't have your own applicant tracking system at the moment, that is something that we can provide. We're just about to sign a new 4-year contract. So it just means that for the next 4 years, if you want to run an ATS and you do a lot of recruiting, then please, you can speak to us and we can potentially give you a price to do that. And that's really it for me, unless anyone's got any questions that they want to ask. If there's any queries, all right.
Sorry, Douglas, there's one in the chat from Fiona. Does the role being advertised by social care providers need to be SSSC registered role?
I would say immediately yes. However, if there is a specific role that you're thinking of that you just want to run by us just to check, just email us at that email address here, and we can give you advice on that.
Elaine's asking, is there a cost associated with feature a role?
Not at the moment. It is something that we have played about with as whether or not we should charge for it. I think ultimately we will charge for it, but at the moment we don't. So if anybody wants to use it, you can feel free. I've got my colleague on the call who, Stephen, he usually answers these emails at the advertising at My Job Scotland email address. So if you just send an email to that and there's a job that you want to promote, then just stick in the link to that job along with the job number and we'll do our best to promote it and let you know once it's available. One thing I didn't say actually, just if there's another question there, when we went to that engage page, I might quickly just share it again. Interestingly, not interestingly, well, it is interesting to me, but it's probably interesting to many of you as well. But if you use the URL to come to the website, so to your homepage, which is here, or you click through to the jobs, because equally you can use the URL /jobs to get to this page. We have this top here, which is create alert. So you can create an alert directly for your jobs as they get published on My Job Scotland. So that's another thing you could promote when you're promoting the URL, that you can create an alert immediately by just sticking in your email address, making a few clicks, and then creating the alert. I'm not going to create an alert because then it'll just tell me I've got an error because there's already a saved search under that email address. But that's a good way to make sure, if you don't do it already, that it'll automatically email people who may be interested in your jobs, but to be notified whenever you post a new one.
All right, thanks so much. So in terms of the call to action and where to go for that, I think everybody will have had a direct email from My Job Scotland about how to do that and make use of the free ads if you're not already using them. But I think Stephen's put the email in the chat there for how to start that process if you're not using them. So it'd be great to use the grant. I mean, it's there to be used. So it's an amazing offer, and we at CAN are really encouraging folk to use My Job Scotland as a recruitment offer as much as you possibly can, I guess. So I'll move now to John Paul. So John Paul's going to talk a bit around use of digital. John Paul's actually co-creator of CAN Digital. He's my boss, basically. And he's just going to talk about sort of use of digital, the things that we do in CAN. We work around all sorts of recruitment in Scotland and across the country. And we've got quite a lot of tricks up our sleeves in terms of use of channel, and very interested in end-to-end measurement at CAN and helping folk actually report what actually matters. So I'll just pass over to you, JP. Thank you,
Leanne. Thank you for having me today. Thank you for having me, Doug. Leanne's asked me to sort of trawl through everything we've done at CAN and sort of distill some of the things that work and some of the things that don't work in recruitment to share with you. So hopefully, even if you don't end up working with any of us, this will be useful information for you. We've been working, as Leanne said, since 2015 in Scotland with various public sector organisations, and we are obsessed with getting the quality of the applications up and the cost of applications, or cost per application, down. And we've run about well, over 1,000 recruitment campaigns. And so what I asked our AdOps team is to look through those campaigns and to come up with some things that we probably wouldn't do again, and some things that we're definitely recommending you should do all the time. Because I think the most valuable thing we can do is to help our organisations stop using things that don't work and start doing a lot more stuff that does work. We don't have unlimited resources. Teams are stretched, budgets are stretched. So optimizing and making the right choices is really, really important. Underlying a lot of what we do at CAN, we put inclusivity, accessibility at the top of what we do, because by working for the public sector, we have to make sure we don't accelerate inequalities by relying on channels that don't reach everybody. And we are passionate, particularly in recruitment, that yes, you need digital, but you must also have physical and human interaction points to again avoid accelerating inequalities, and to make sure that what you're offering reaches as many people as possible. We are this obsession with measuring and reducing cost per outcome is about, yes, reducing waste, but also stopping investment in things that sort of technically work, but the cost per application is so high that you could have got 20, 30, 40, 50 times more quality in other places. So we're always trying to get that cost per application towards zero. And one of the rules we have is if you can't measure it, don't do it. So we need to be able to demonstrate that we've reached the people that you want to recruit, that we've got that cost per interaction down really low, and that also the cost per quality application is also low. It's not just about high volume, it's actually the opposite of high volume is what you want. One thing that came back massively was there was huge disparity in campaign performance. And these things we found out were actually down to things that weren't communications problems. So where you were offering roles in adult social care, where the remuneration was significantly lower than Tesco's or other regional employers, or some people calculated they might be worse off than if they were on benefits. Obviously, those campaigns did not perform very well. Another massive thing to consider in rural areas is transport. If you don't solve the transport problem for people, it's just not going to stack up them working for you, whether they have a car or not. Sometimes the cost of transport to get to work is a huge barrier. So these are things that really you can't communicate around and you need to fix. Another key issue is application processes, taking people straight to applicant tracking systems. Some of these ATSs are a test of character to get through, which obviously you want people with character, but you don't want to necessarily exclude people who find horrendous digital UX a vast barrier. So you need to sort of get these things sorted before you then turn on communications and paid media. put this together for you. We'll be sharing this afterwards, but it's well worth thinking not where you like to advertise, but where people actually are, and they're consuming news and social every day. They're not on LinkedIn every day. They're not on Indeed every day. So making sure that you consider where people are ensures that you're inclusive in where you position your advertising. We've learned quite a lot from the hundreds or thousands of campaigns that we've run, but there are some common things that start to come up. Search is incredibly powerful. Most of the quality applications come through search, which obviously makes sense. Also, remarketing to jobs boards, public sector owned jobs boards, is really, really powerful. Police Scotland used remarketing to My Job Scotland to get people along to events in the area really, really successfully. We also found that social can be very high click and very high numbers, but not much out the other end. So moving away from social is something we're recommending people do. We're able to target economically inactive people away from job sites on news sites much more cost effectively. And particularly with those audiences, simple user experience was essential. 20, 30, 40 times improvement in conversion rate from simplifying that user engagement. And by giving people jobs, we found that it actually saved the public purse 16 times more money than it cost to run the recruitment campaign. And also there were requirements for targeting very specific communities, and we were using international news, sports and music sites. That worked incredibly as well. And another point about making that using the public sector owned estate means that we can have sustainable, always on campaigns. So that's some sort of very top line information around some of the things that we've seen working. I wanted to start with the data that showed us what does not work. Channels like Spotify, very, very high cost per application. TikTok, its geography targeting isn't strong enough. X is really, really low reach. It's journalists and politicians. Nextdoor is sort of like a second league of hell beneath Facebook groups. Very low reach, very low frequency. Doesn't actually get to a lot of people. And LinkedIn had incredibly high cost per clicks, £45 plus. So take the data from all of those campaigns. You can use that and avoid wasting budget in those places, because they will reduce the number of quality applications that you get. Also, when we've measured the sort of what's known as above the line, where we talk about TV, radio, out of home, things like that, found dreadful cost per application rates from radio, out of home, just no measurable outcome and no correlation even with search traffic. So you can save yourself a lot of time and bother by just not bothering with those channels. Also, we found that just posting on organic social was pretty much the same as doing nothing. Generic jobs boards, dreadful for a number of reasons. Really, if I'm typing adult social care job in Scotland and this one's trying to take me out to Australia, the UX is bad, and there's a lot of competition for jobs as well. And what we're finding and hearing from recruiters is that advertising in these places tends to get you a very high volume of low quality applications, which gives you an additional problem, which is a lot of clutter to get through, most of which will not be fruitful. When you search for adult social care jobs in Scotland, obviously MJS comes up the top. So focusing in on higher quality pools makes a lot of sense, especially if they're free to use. Another thing that doesn't work as well is taking people straight from a job ad into an ATS. You need to land them somewhere that gives them a better user experience, an impression of the employer. And that's really important, because going straight to ATS gives you nearly 100% bounce rate. You don't get that opportunity to make a good impression employer, which means that in future, when they see advertising for you, they're less likely to click. So you're actually, by generating poor experiences, you're reducing, you're impacting negatively your employer brand. What does work well? Really accessible user experience. So land people on something that gives them that emotive feel about the job. And also, as Police Scotland did, provide for people to be able to ask for a little bit of a help with application and make that human connection at the same time. By relying on digital only, you're probably excluding a significant proportion of people who probably make phenomenal employees, but make sure that's there to connect them with the human element. one of the most powerful paid channels is search. Placing ads next to search results around these sorts of terms on Google and Bing means that you're putting your job in front of people who may not be considering working adult social care. They might be considering just getting some sort of work, and making sure your roles are there works incredibly well. We've been part of large campaigns with large budgets and have found that search delivers about 52% of the quality applications from about 15% of the spend. Or to put it another way, spend every pound you can get on search first before many other things. Also, remarketing to public sector owned jobs boards works really well. So when you search for adult social care jobs in Scotland, most people are going to come to My Job Scotland, particularly on mobile. It's the top result, and it's the first mention in all the AI results as well. And so what you can do if you've got a listing and a presence on My Job Scotland is remarket to people who've looked at the various adult social care pages. That is a super audience, a super qualified audience, and likely to give you much higher interaction, but also much higher quality application rates by basically reducing waste in terms of spending on reaching people who just aren't in market for the kinds of roles you're positioning. Also, using the public sector estate where councils in the area have digital and physical assets, there's massive potential for remarketing and having low cost, always on sustainable campaigns. This is really important because I don't think the need for skills in adult social care is going to go away no matter how good we do a job of it. So it's very important that that cost per application is low and that it's always on attracting people to the profession. So using that estate works incredibly well. One of the reasons I think that people spend a lot of money on this kind of stuff is because they feel that not everyone's in digital, or there's a digital divide. The way to close that loop is to target, using direct mail, very specific digital dip zones. So don't close the digital divide by spending money on really untargeted media. Use targeted direct mail to what we call digital dip zones to get not just the digitally divided, but also people who, grudgingly digital, probably brilliant carers, very warm, empathetic, social people, brilliant at connecting with humans, cannot stand digital and forms. So making sure that you augment those campaigns with that, but critically don't then whack a QR code linking them into another form. They need a phone number probably and a conversation with a human to have a brilliant high quality connection. In terms of paid digital, mentioned search, mentioned remarketing. Advertising around local and national news sites means you're reaching people. You can target lower income households. Also, if you want to target younger people, it has to be Snapchat. TikTok's not quite targeted enough, and encouraging young people into these professions, Snapchat is the king on that. Meta is also an important part, but we're reducing spend on Meta all of the time. So you end up with this sort of recruitment communications mix, which is, if you can get it, the public sector owned estate, My Job Scotland, council sites, things like that, targeted direct mail, and then search remarketing to ensure that you're reaching everybody for as low cost as possible. So that's how you make sure that you're reaching everybody. You've got that perfect mix. You're reducing waste, therefore reducing cost towards zero. You're increasing quality, so you're not getting thousands of applications from people who frankly aren't appropriate for the role, and you're making sure that that then becomes more sustainable over time. So just to sort of summarize, you can't fix wages, transport, and a horrendous ATS experience with a communications campaign. Those are things you need fixed before you really start investing in paid. In future, you can probably spend less of your time and money on generic jobs boards, LinkedIn and things like that. Don't take people straight to ATSs. Give them really strong experiences on sites that work beautifully on mobile, and really don't bother investing at all in above the line, non-measurable, or even spending time on organic social media, because they're about the same as doing nothing. However, in future, do more around making sure that accessible user experience is there digitally and with humans on the end of a phone. Getting that right is absolutely essential before you start amplifying. Make sure the channels you're using are genuinely inclusive, i.e. they reach people who have income levels that would make those jobs attractive, and you're reaching them where they are as they look at news, music, sport, you know, across digital and news and social channels. And definitely measure, do not compromise on measuring the cost per quality application. That's the key to sifting out stuff that doesn't work, to reducing cost over time, and making sure we can have sustainable, always on campaigns that drive the right sorts of candidates that we need to the roles that we have. We'll share this afterwards. If you'd like a slightly more in-depth conversation, please contact Leanne. Hopefully there's at least one thing in all of that that you found useful and will be able to apply.
Thanks so much, JP. Super run through of quite a high level topic for some, maybe haven't heard a lot of that before. So we know at CAN that some of this can be like completely overwhelming. We do this day in, day out, so we're always happy to explain it. Sorry, someone wants to come in quite late, so just let them in. I just wanted to pause there. There was a couple of questions about what is lead marketing that we've answered in the chat, JP. So I think, Robert, if you want a follow-on question, just chuck it in the chat. We're happy. We ask that question a million times a day, so it's totally fine to ask it. If there's anybody on the call at this stage, that we've been chucking a lot of information at you. If you want to ask anything, come off mic. We don't do things very formally on these webinars or at CAN in general, actually. So do feel free to speak to any of us. And if there isn't any, I will just invite Tony to come on for a bit of a chat with me about his work and what he does, and just more of a general sort of conversation about what's going on in Scotland at the moment, in terms of recruitment in general, but you know, obviously with a focus on adult social care. And then we'll wrap up and let you get on with your afternoon. So I don't see any questions and I don't see any hands up, which is absolutely fine. Just wanted to give you a space there to come in if you wanted to. All right, so Tony, is your camera? I don't see you.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are, there you are.
The bloke who looks like Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers today. Sometimes it's Santa, sometimes it's Kenny Rogers. It's
Depends on time of the year.
evening. Well, we're approaching that time now. So thanks, Tony. And Tony has an absolute huge plethora of experience in the public sector recruitment space, worked with many organisations outside of public sector as well. So he's got a business called Momentum SPK, and his MOT service he helps to transform end-to-end delivery in recruitment. Like myself, only works in Scotland pretty much, so he fully understands the Scottish market, current challenges, but also opportunities really on a more positive uptake here now on adult social care. JP there saying that, you know, this is not going away, the need, and obviously some stuff there in Scottish government policy which is supporting the work. How that translates on the ground, we don't know. Obviously, you know, it's a difficult area. We hear from council colleagues that we work with and other organisations about you know, getting bums on seats, I suppose, basically. So we just thought we'd, rather than have like, you know, death by PowerPoint, we'd just have a quick 10-minute conversation, Tony and I, about the things we talk about probably when we are working on recruitment pieces of work. Tony and I both work for Police Scotland on their recruitment, so probably can put our money where our mouth is with the campaign there that JP was quite helpfully sharing there about looking at end-to-end process, looking at from the what I said at the start there about the framework, it's talking about putting the candidate first and what it feels like for them. I've got a background in accessible and inclusive comms, a bit of an interest in that, and I feel like it's very important, you know, to champion that and to make sure that folk can actually speak to people, especially in this world of AI, that we are absolutely going down that road. I mean, there's no way back, I don't think, from the way things are in using AI and the resource that helps and all the rest of it. So that example for me, I'm quite proud of for Police Scotland in terms of adding something in where they can actually speak to the team if they need a bit extra support. That makes Police Scotland human. That makes the process easier for the folk who do actually maybe need a little bit of extra help. It's like when they go through the recruitment process, perhaps that they get the questions in advance, or looking at it more in a more holistic way, so that you can get the right candidates and the quality candidates once you've got the digital media in place as well. So Tony,
Yes.
I suppose for all of your experience and doing recruitment MOTs and for a long time, especially in Scotland, I was just wondering if you could give me a few of your top, I don't like the word top tips really, but what are your key learnings or your top 3 in terms of what should folk really have their house in order and what should they be absolutely nailing, do you think, in the current climate for adult social care and recruitment?
Okay. I think it's really important. I mean, I just take Leanne's used the word recruitment MOT. What I do is I go under the bonnet, look at everything from process to brand to copywriting to process. And the work I did with Police Scotland be a great example that we work together. We can on lots of different things, improving the digital things, all the different things around it. Most important thing for me, and I'll say this to every single person on here, is the process for a candidate is different from the process of what we think it is. And I'll use an example. So first question I always say to everybody is, have you applied for a job on your own site? And the answer to that often is no. So that's the first thing I always say to everybody is go and apply for a job on your own site. The second part of it is when you're looking at the way that you recruit, it's really important to figure out what your website does, what the traffic is that you're getting to the pages, what you can get things like eye tracking tools that tell you how many people are clicking on the vacancies page and so on and so forth. You have to understand the data and MI around what you're getting and what you get out the other end, which is always really important. I think it's interesting that when I started doing work with Police Scotland, they had very little data, very little MI, and my frustrations were huge. And the principal reason that they didn't have any data was that nobody really took the time to sort it out. And the one thing about data is that it's evidence. It's evidence of something working and something not. So a good example would be Dougie showed the back end there before of an advert. I think it got, was it 489 views for a couple of applications or one application? The first question I would ask is, why are 489 people viewing an advert and not applying? So that'd be the first question I would ask. And if I knew how many views that normally takes to get an advert to become an application, I'd be able to see what's potentially wrong with it. And that leads me to the next part, is that when you look at your adverts that you write, a lot of them are just job descriptions that are repurposed into being an advert. And you have to look at the way you put the copy in there. One of the key things I think that's really important is storytelling. And I say this to every single person I ever speak to about MOTs, is the story that you tell is what a candidate sees. So I'll give you a good example of, I think they're on the call. I think Turning Point are on the call. I went onto the Turning Point website and had a good look at their website today, funnily enough. And the videos that they've put up around, real life experiences of people who work there are excellent. That's a really good way of displaying your story. These are the sort of things that have worked really well for Police Scotland. They've gone from having no stories in videos to actually having loads, and they created a lot of them themselves with real life police officers, and they put them into situations to show people in different backgrounds. So I think storytelling is really, really important, as is copy. I think one of the key things for me is, and again, I was just looking at different things, is sometimes you need to view what you're doing as if you're a candidate, not just that you are somebody who works for an organisation. So I'll give you an example. I've looked at the number of different job titles that exist across social care, and as a candidate, I'm looking at them going, right, I'm not really sure about a lot of these. I don't know what's the difference between a lead practitioner, a care assistant, all these different things. So if you're not explaining that, a candidate will often just walk away. They will just go, I don't understand that, so I'm not going to look at that. So one of the key things that I think is really important, and I did some work on social care about 5 years ago, and it's really important to think about this, is if you go onto your website and you are not explaining what you expect of the candidate. So for example, this is what we're going to do for you, and that doesn't include the fact that you can apply for a job in social care without having the training and all the different things around it. Candidates do not like having to think for themselves and going, oh, I don't know whether there's any training here. This is all medical. I don't understand it. So you've got to think about things logistically. So make it really clear that you do offer training, that you don't need experience, you need life experience too often to fill some of these jobs. And I think it's really important that you can think about the way that you do things. There was interesting, JP was talking a lot there about targeting and the way that targeting is really important. I think going forward, and I think the public sector will benefit from this, and I think social care organisations will as well, there's not as many jobs in the jobs marketplace. So whereas in the past, you know, where your target audiences were, there's not as many jobs in hospitality, say, you know, there's not as many people working in bookies, there's not as many cleaning jobs, there's not as many as admin jobs. So the reality of it is, if you can find a way of targeting who you think your target audience is, those people who would be the right people to fill the job, then you need to think about doing that. Digital's a great way of doing that. John Paul used the always on phrase, which I'll just explain it simply. The police used to do campaigns, and it was maybe a 4-week burst, spending a fortune across lots of different channels. And from the moment I got in there, I was saying, yeah, but you don't know what works. You don't know how it works. You need to spread it out. So what you can do is you sort of A/B test what medias work. The ones that work, you carry on doing it, and you try and have an always-on campaign. So if you are spending money on advertising, and you know, try and have an always-on presence. That's really, really important. And I think the most important thing for me on recruitment is that, you know, you are patient sometimes. It's not just about throwing things up just because you've got a job vacancy. You know, put a proper piece of copy about. I quite liked on the Turning Point website, you could click on a benefits area and see what you actually got as a candidate if you applied for the job and you were successful. So there are some of the things that I've just picked up just from looking at social care specific stuff. So I would look at data and MI, make certain you're good at that. Your job copy, things like your benefits, make certain you say that. Think about your storytelling. And most important for me is do tell people that they can do the job without having a skill that's required or training. You're going to give them the training. I think that's really important. There are quite a lot of general stuff that comes out. I do a lot of work with the CIPD, and I've worked with them on and off probably for 20 years. This is their list of what they class as what, you know, candidates are looking for. So flexibility. Now I know there's part-time roles, there's nighttime roles, there's things that you can do in social care that mean that you can fix some of those things. Maybe you can't have as much flexibility as working from home as some of the people that get, but that's just one of those things. Reward is important. So what people are actually getting rewarded, that doesn't have to just be financial. It can be, you know, just the reward that you get for working in an environment that you want to work in. Because the number 3 thing that CIPD listed in last year's massive report that they do was purpose, and actually understand the purpose of what you're doing. And I think working in the social care environment is a perfect. You are giving a service to people who really require it, and you're getting the good vibes and all the good things around it. There was a cracking radio campaign I heard a few months ago, and it was somebody who was talking about enjoying being a carer, and then the young lad that he was looking after came on and said, you know, something along the lines of, Stephen has been brilliant, he's brought me out of my shell. And I just thought, you know, if that isn't reward and purpose, I don't know what is. So that sort of storytelling is the type of things you need to get across. I think the other thing that CIPD is saying is needs to be interesting work. Well, I don't know, we use the line in Police Scotland, a job like no other, so that it crosses all boundaries. It's not just for police officers. It was for people who worked in the call centres, because let's face it, a call centre job for the police is a job like no other. It's not the same as a call centre working for Sky. You could have a job like no other in finance and so on and so forth, because everything is different, a different challenge, a different way of looking at the way work is. So think about those things, and it is interesting work. So finding the nooks and crannies that you tell people what the interesting work is really important. And obviously the benefits are really important for everybody. So there's just some general stuff there, Leanne. Is there any more questions you want to ask me? Because again, I've done my usual set off on a tone and just started talking.
I think it's fine for people just to hear a chat at 5 to 3 after a long webinar. That's totally perfect. I think for me, there was just one thing I wanted to pick up was, like, for us in Cannes and what we do, although so the creative on the radio is really nice, but then we would really want folk to be then making sure that the evaluation of that is going somewhere. So what we would help with there is making sure that your call to action, your instruction is sending you somewhere, and then the rest of your channels is working around that, so that when they go online, which they will go online, basically they've got somewhere to go. Go on, John Paul.
No, totally agree. I was going to add to that as well, that you've got Sonia's question around direct mail, and pointing out that it's expensive. I totally agree, it is, which is why you need to strip out as much of the distribution as you can, by looking at, yes, income, where people are in terms of age and other sorts of targeting criteria. But also you can trial it in small bursts, measure, and if it doesn't work, stop. So I think staggering delivery is a great way, rather than going to everybody or exposing yourself to high risk. Stagger delivery in certain areas, and seeing what happens. And if it doesn't work for you, don't worry. It's very useful when you have to reach everybody, but it doesn't need to be top of the pile if it's just about performance. And there was another question from Fiona about attracting younger people.
Yeah.
I would point right back to Tony's point there on storytelling,
Yeah.
finding younger people who are already in the workforce,
Yeah.
finding out what it means to them, and then pushing that out on Snapchat. My job, Scotland and COSLA have one of the largest databases of younger audiences. They run a campaign across Snapchat and TikTok actually, to encourage them to sign up for job alerts. So we know that works, and we know they're on MJS. So being there is a good place to do it. But that message and working on the the heartstrings and the real incentives and the real benefits, and telling those stories is the first part of bringing people in to then an accessible user experience. Probably a lot with young people as well. It's about breaking the schema, their perception of what a career in care actually looks like. So telling people stories that don't fit with their schema of what a career in care might be is a really neat way of getting people to pay attention, and looking at maybe a whole array of wonderful things they can do in adult social care.
I'd add one point on the young people stuff, because that's my background in engagement with young people at NHS in my previous roles, and that would be speak to the young people on that question, get them involved and test it with them, test your content with them. We as older people think we know, we absolutely do not know how it's going to land with them. So that would be my 10 pence worth on that from doing it for 20 years. Thanks, Robert. Well, I'm going to be a good chair. I'm going to close the session. We will send over the presentation information from myself, John Paul and Douglas. The call to action is obviously get in touch with the My Job Scotland team if you want to take up the offer of the free ads. Please do use the grant, use it up. It's there for you to use. If we can help with explaining any of the use of digital, happy to do so. There's a lot of experience learned from the Police Scotland case study actually, so happy to share that with folk. The contact details will be on the slides, and this has been recorded, so we will share the recording as well. Thanks for joining us, and hope you have a good afternoon. Okay, thank you.